something so much you can't comprehend. And when you see it, you don't think it'll end. I'll take everything you gave me, I'll wear it so everyone can see that you left more than the eye can see. They'll see your stellar legacy. Everybody just look up tonight. You'll see that everything is alright. See, the world's got a halo. What is it that really we know? We said love, love's all mine. You're mine.
Hi everybody, I apologize for us being late. It's been a really unusual morning. This is Richard Sachs on Lost Arts Radio. This is a special broadcast, originally live stream on the first day of August 2018. I think it's 2018 now, yeah. I'm thinking about a lot of things at once this morning, and it's going to be rebroadcast on Blog Talk for the radio audience on a Sunday in the near future. So I hope that you can hear one or the other of those two, and then the archives will be on YouTube and our other live stream channels, and also on Blog Talk for access free anytime. And I'm glad that some of you are holding on and waiting for us. We're about now 20 minutes late from our scheduled time because we had technical difficulties, and we'll have Zen on the phone, on Skype actually, very shortly, probably the next few minutes. So I want to just introduce her to the people that don't know who she is. Zen Honeycutt is whom I consider a real national and global hero, and I like to highlight the work of people like that. She likes to give us her first credential that she's a mother, even though she has a lot of other credentials. And I like that, too, about her very much, because there's an attack worldwide, and especially in America and the UK and Australia and other so-called Western countries like that, against mothers, against fathers, against families, against normal children. The whole fabric of society is under attack. It's not just GMOs. And even in agriculture, it's not GMOs. It's not just GMOs. It's also chemical pesticides that are designed to destroy the biosphere and sold to gullible humans like us as really feeding the world, just like GMOs, and making things really great by eliminating the big mistake of God, which is insects and disease, and hoping we'll fall for that. And unfortunately, a lot of us, including many farmers, since at least World War II, have fallen for that idea that chemical fertilizers are feeding the world. They're doing nothing of the sort. They're seeming to provide convenience so that farmers don't have to really learn about being farmers anymore. Now, I'm not saying that as an outsider. I've been involved in organic agriculture since at least the mid-'60s, and it's far more advanced than chemical fertilizer. I even went to agriculture school for a while in University of California a long time ago, and they were teaching at that time, they're a little bit having to back off now, but they were teaching that the soil is there courtesy of nature, just to hold the plant up, basically waiting for chemical fertilizer to save the biosphere. And so then chemical fertilizer comes in, courtesy of people like Justus von Liebig, who was a German chemist who made a discovery that you don't have to bother with nonsense like the soil microorganisms and stuff like that. You just put in water-soluble nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and it's much more efficient. The plant grows faster, it gets bigger, it weighs more. You can get more money for it as a farmer and as a retailer. It's just the world does much better. And, they really didn't know much about the fact that chemical fertilizers destabilize the whole universe of microorganisms in the soil, makes the plant weak, and then nature, which is not a big mistake of God, it's pretty well designed when you start learning about it. The insects and disease are there waiting to see if there's a defect or a weakness in the species or that crop of plants or trees or whatever. And if there is, they come in to try to wipe it out so a healthier species can take over, or a healthier specimen of that kind of plant. And it's a pretty good system. And that's totally overridden by chemical agriculture. And I'm not here to debate the farmers. I have great respect and appreciation for the work of the farmers. They're incredible people. But the small farmers, everything other than big commercial agriculture, like a factory farm situation, are being wiped out. Farms are being driven out of business because of this so-called efficiency, which produces a lot more food at a lower cost because you can let the biosphere die. And I don't think that's a very brilliant idea, and neither will they when it really comes full circle. So we're here to support the knowledge of real agriculture, real food, real food distribution, and health. That's how this show started out quite a while back, on health. And health requires an understanding of what food and farming are supposed to be, and it's not GMO. And this is one of the things you get shut up for the fastest, but it's really true. Real science would recognize that in a second. And real science is not our enemy. It's being suppressed right now. We want to bring it back. Interestingly enough, it comes out to be that real science is identical to real spiritual investigation. And religion is in the lower sense of the word, not connection to God, but I'm meaning it in terms of something that you just have to believe. And if you don't believe it, you're bad. You cannot investigate it. And that's the kind of so-called science we have now. So bringing on Zen is a great privilege for us, and to have her here with us is incredible. So we're about to call her back with the technical difficulties out of the way, and let's see if we can bring her online here. At least for the moment, what I was doing in the last 10 minutes, Zen, is I was just explaining who you were, and I was saying that you give your credentials as mom first. And I really appreciate that, because the value of regular moms and regular dads and regular families and everything are being really attacked right now, and it's very coordinated and intentional. And the fact that you're bringing that back is wonderful. And so I talked about that. I also talked about the fact that when you get into GMOs and understanding what they are, you realize this is not just about GMOs. Because if you just try to be GMO-free and you don't know what's wrong with pesticides and chemical fertilizers even, which is what makes pesticides seem necessary by destabilizing the soil life, then you're not getting the whole picture. And so this is part of really a health concern for not only individual humans, but every organism in the biosphere. And I'm suspecting, although we didn't get a chance to, we haven't talked for, 2 years or something. But tell me if you think that line of thought makes sense and if it fits into how you understand things now.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an issue. GMOs and glyphosate is just part of a larger issue, which is really the corporations having control over our food supply, our environment, our government, our health choices, right, our health freedoms. And that is that they operate to make as much profit as possible and to sell as much of whatever it is that they're making, fertilizers, pesticides, chemicals, drugs, whatever that is, they operate to make as much profit as possible. And they really don't care or are not taking responsibility for the repercussions. And we see those repercussions in our children. We now have 1 out of 2 children in America have a chronic illness such as asthma, autism, autoimmune issues, diabetes, obesity, or food allergies, right? So 1 out of 2 children have at least one of those. And from my personal experience, they usually have multiples of those. They usually have asthma and allergies or autoimmune issues and autism and allergies. So we have a very sick population,
Right.
and you can easily tell this by looking around. And this is a direct result of the chemical companies and pharmaceutical companies being able to control what's going on with our policies.
Right.
And it's really something that everybody needs to take aware of. It's very disturbing as well, because we used to be able to think that the FDA and the CDC and the EPA and the US, they were all, they were doing the right thing for us. They were making sure that our products or our food or our medical treatments were safe. We just assumed that. We just thought, oh, well, if it's in the grocery store, it's got to be okay. There's regulations.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not. That's not true. They are not protecting us. They're protecting the profits of these corporations.
Yeah, you brought up like enough topics right there for like the next 10 shows. And anyway, what I was going to say just briefly about what you brought up, first of all, economics. You said it was because the corporations are in charge. And that's true, but it's not because they're corporations, because you could start a truly benevolent corporation today and do some wonderful things for the movement. It's because corporations, I think free market capitalism is obviously the way to go, but with the caveat that make as much money as you can, because that's the incentive, but never do it by intentionally hurting people. And that element of ethics in the global corporations, the fact that that's missing is threatening the existence of the whole planet. So that was
right.
one. Also, medicine you brought up is, real medicine, like real corporations that are well motivated, is wonderful. But when it gets in the hands of the drug dealers, pharmaceutical experts, then you have a different result, and it's very much parallel to the issue in agriculture. So I just wanted to let you know I'm really, being impacted by the points you're bringing up, because they're like massive, important understandings for our audience to grasp and put it all together.
Yeah, well, it's the morals and the ethics is definitely the root of all of this, and it's very disturbing, and that's why one reason we work to empower moms. Our motto at Moms Across America is Empowered Moms, Healthy Kids, because when people are empowered, when they have, first of all, the knowledge, and then they have actions that they can take to do something about it, along with that comes this ethical, moral base. And with moms, it comes from our only special interest is taking care of our families, is the well-being of our families.
Exactly.
And so we come from a place of love and nurturing and care. And, one of the big things moms always say is be honest, don't lie. And so we come from this place of I believe, of authenticity and care, which is completely different from corporations. This reminds me, one thing I mentioned in my book is I was not surprised, but also, alarmed to see that in this book called Bold, it's all about corporations and entrepreneurs taking on the world and, changing the world and all of that, by Peter Diamandis, I believe I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he said that one of the big CEOs, I don't know if it was Google or IBM or, one major corporation, would go into his board meetings with a T-shirt that said "safety last" instead of "safety first," right? Because their whole motto was to just break rules and go fast. And
so he's trying to get him to think about it, basically.
Yeah, he was trying to get them to say, like, forget about all the rules and, safety and just go be innovative, right. Go invent and create. But having this concept of safety last means along the way you could be very inventive, but people and living things they'll get hurt.
You could even come up with something like GMOs. And you also were saying that usually the kids that develop these problems, allergies or other kinds of problems, they have more than one. And of course they have more than one, because the whole concept of diagnosing and putting you into a category, thereby not looking at what's going on in your whole body, but so that you can just be drugged for a certain diagnosed condition is very distracting from what's really going on. So, yeah, they probably have like hundreds of actual things going wrong in the body when one thing is diagnosed, right?
Oh, absolutely. If you have an autoimmune issue, that means your body is, attacking itself. That means you have inflammation. You probably have hormone disruption. You have food allergies. You probably have leaky gut. I mean, there's a whole host of things. And any mom that, I talk to down the street or, at my kid's school will tell you that their kid has got multiple things going on all at once. And those things can lead, they can lead to things like cancer. If you have an allergy like my son did to carrageenan, which is a seaweed food thickener that's in just about everything that kids like, if you look that up, it can lead to ulcers in the stomach and eventually stomach cancer. And there are kids as young as 8, 10, 11, 12 years old getting stomach cancer as a result of consistently ingesting that type of food. So, and that's not everybody, right? Not everybody has that reaction, but some do. And it'll lead to...
And probably all the ones that don't have things going wrong that you just don't happen to diagnose, so... Or they do diagnose it just in a different way and they don't make the connection. Like, for instance, say behavioral issues or learning disorders. Most parents don't think that has anything to do with the sandwich or the burger or the cheese that they just fed their kid. They just don't connect food to their child's learning disorder. And we've got 1 out of 6 children now in our American schools with a learning disorder. That's a huge problem for our future, it's
and for the education.
Not normal at all, right. I also, before we have so much to talk about here, I'm thinking to go fast because I want the 10 hours, but what you mentioned also about corporations, first of all, I pointed out it's not because it's a corporation, it's because of what they're doing with the corporate tool. Yeah. And any of our listeners could start a corporation right now and make it wonderful. But I want to take that point further, excuse me, and mention that it's not just infecting corporations right now, this lack of ethics. I see it as marketing all over the place because even individuals that are starting home businesses, which is a great idea to do, they're falling into this track of marketing where the whole point is, like the marketing experts don't care what you're marketing. They just say, here's how to scientifically manipulate people into thinking they want it. And it's very much like global corporations for home use. And I'm saying this point you're making about corporations is important for individual lives too. Your life can be really efficient and successful and all this stuff, and it can turn out horrible if that ethical component is missing. And if the bigger picture is not the focus instead of these little tiny isolated understandings, which we're getting in modern education of specialization so that you won't understand the context. And I see one of the most wonderful things that you're doing as bringing back the context. It's all one issue.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm really glad that you see that because it's important to me that people are connected with their actions. It's not just just do something, let's just make a phone call to the EPA. It's really, let's come from a place of love and nurturing and empowerment. I mean, we can take this country back and have health and freedom. We absolutely can. We just need the people that are listening and all of their friends and family to remember our personal power and to remember, that we have choices, we have freedoms, we have the ability to take action. It's our money. These corporations only have the money they have because we have been giving it to them. And women make 90% of the household purchasing decisions, and mothers buy 85% of the food. That's why I targeted mothers. It's not just because I'm a mom. It's because that's the most effective way to go about it. And so we just need to reach moms and women especially. I mean, men are extremely important. I have not been able to do this without the support of many men in my life. But the women and the moms are the ones that are going to turn this around through their purchasing power. And if they remember, like, okay, when I'm reaching for that product on the shelf, I love my kids, right? They're worth everything. They're worth it. They are worth it to me. Their health and their future, it depends on me making a choice to buy organic, to buy non-toxic, to buy a safe product versus just the cheap, easy, fast, tasty, thing that, just looks eye-catching that day. You've got to come from your values when you make that decision.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of men, women have a huge impact on men. They're very connected. So, the motivation of women and what they're doing with themselves and their own lives is going to totally make a huge part of the decision of what direction men go in too. So it's a big responsibility. And I think what you pointed out is your issue is GMO's second at highest, and that love and nurturing and empowerment are even above that because they cover everything. Even if GMOs were eradicated tomorrow, which would be fine with me. I mean, obviously it should be done sooner than that. But there would be all these other problems that come out of this one issue. And I think that that's the integrated understanding of life, and that love is the basis of it, not killing each other or ourselves in subtle ways. And that I see that as what you're bringing back. And the technical stuff of GMOs is just one of the essential elements of it, and it happened to be the trigger that got you started. Is that accurate?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for seeing that. I really do appreciate that you see the bigger picture of what's going on here because, I really believe that, eventually we could have it's going to be very challenging, but we could have GMOs go away. We could have glyphosate go away, but that's not the end goal of what I want to accomplish. What I want to accomplish is having moms and people in America empowered again and loving their families and taking the action that creates strong, healthy communities. That's part of our mission, creating healthy communities. And there's a saying from Kid President, if you haven't seen him on YouTube. He's a YouTube sensation. He's older now, but when he was a little kid, he was just freaking adorable. And one of his things was, is, if all the moms in the world knew how awesome they are, all the problems in the world would be fixed.
Exactly. I think that's the biggest secret, actually. It's not, the biggest secret is not that GMOs are designed to kill you and ruin the biosphere. The biggest secret is that you're so powerful that even if you never said a word, if you change yourself completely, the resonance effect on the whole rest of the world would be overwhelming.
Yes, if you knew how awesome you are, you could accomplish anything you set your mind to. And every mom could. And we could transform this. We could have a healthy, sustainable, safe, peaceful planet. We absolutely can. It's just the problem is people not being in touch with their own personal power, with the loving themselves, with knowing how amazing they are. And we absolutely can. That's why I always come back to that. At the end of all of my talks, I always come back to personal power and what you can do about it. And and I have a story about that. I'm going to save it for the end, but I have a story about that, and it's just important to get people back in touch with what they can do about things, because so many of us have been dumbed down, or we've set aside taking types of actions because we're so busy with other things, or we just get sucked into another movie on Netflix, or we just spend hours arguing with somebody on Facebook. I mean, those things all distract.
Right. So your personal power, also has to be understood in where it has the most power, and that is not in arguments and debates. Because usually, in my experience, and you can tell me if you disagree, that when you get in an argument or a debate, like say the head of some company that makes GMOs, or the telecom companies that want us to think there's no problem with getting radiated by 5G or 4G or 3G, which are all designed in accordance with microwave weapons technology that was perfected before World War II. None of these things are by accident or oversights. If you try to debate or argue with somebody who's coming from that side, you just destroy your own energy and get very frustrated and upset. But if you just act different and become different so your actions change by themselves, you affect even the people who would like to have you destroyed. And there's no defense. And for women, they can have such a massive effect on each other and on men too, because underneath is the same spirit. And if that gets out, the whole game is over.
Yeah, and that reminds me of when I went to the Monsanto shareholder meeting, I believe it was 3-4 years ago now, the first time. It was terrifying, but when I spoke to my mother beforehand, she said to me, well, you really just want them to do something different, right? You don't want them to just shut down. And I said, and because she sees the good in everyone. She wants people to go in a good direction, all of that, right? She doesn't just make people wrong. And I said, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask them to go in a new direction, right? I'm not going to be screaming and yelling at them and be hateful and, all of that. I'm going to ask them to go in a new direction. So when I saw Mr. Grant, the CEO, he came over before I spoke and shook my hand, and I looked him in the eye and I said, Mr. Grant, I'm looking forward to, Moms Across America is looking forward to the day when Monsanto goes in a new, it's no longer making products which harm our children. And he said, well, we're always looking forward and we have science on our side. And I said, oh, well, we have science too that your product, we have science too that your products are harming our children. And just consider, if you're wrong, there's a national, and he said actually global, I was like, you're right, a global impact, right? If you're wrong, the consequences are devastating to the human race. And he said, well, if you're wrong, you're worrying an awful lot of people. And I said, yes, but if I'm wrong, the only consequence is that more people are eating organic. And there's nothing wrong with organic. There's nothing wrong. It's the way food always has been. And then I looked at him, I said, it takes a big man to make a big and powerful company, but it takes an even bigger man to acknowledge when something's not working and to go in a new direction. And for one iota of a second, it was like he was listening, because what I was asking him to do was simply to be bigger than he already thought himself to be. Right. And to turn this ship into a new direction. And I was asking him to be powerful. That was so well worded. Sorry. Thank you so much. And within a year, Monsanto and the other large companies revealed to Carrie Gillum, who was a reporter for Reuters at the time. She now has the book Whitewash that's out. They revealed to her, and she revealed in an article, that they all said that they were going in the direction of softer treatments, or I forgot what the word was they used. They didn't say herbicides, but softer chemical products and biocides. So they were investing in, using natural fungi and things like that we know can kill pests and weeds, but they're natural. And so they did go in a new direction, and it's just a little bit too late, because they already have, how many hundreds of thousands of farmers on this toxic treadmill of chemical cocktails, right? All these farmers saying, we can't use Roundup, what can we use? So they gave them dicamba instead. And now we've got hundreds of millions of dollars of damage, of crops in Arkansas and several other states in the Midwest that used dicamba on their soybeans, and it drifted and it completely destroyed, peach trees and other crops. Right. So so they're sort of stuck in this pattern of using these toxic chemicals. And I believe that the only way that they thought they could, go in a new direction was to sell out to Bayer. I think that was an act of desperation.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. We're going to need to talk about that too, because Bayer, everybody is still thinking, a lot of people are still thinking that they're just a really friendly company that sells baby aspirin, that without that, everybody'd have a heart attack by now. And that, so there's a little bit more understanding of Bayer that's needed. Yeah, and that study, by the way, I was just perusing a book called Outrageous Medical Practices Against Women. It's an older book. But in that book, they talk about a lot of different studies, and one of them is that study with that they claim, aspirin helps people to prevent heart attacks. But guess what? Out of the 22,000 people surveyed, they were all men. There was not one woman. Yeah. And
this is a problem because women are different. In fact, in the book, they talk about the author was in a lab, and there was a lab assistant running by with a box full of mice. And she said, "Oh, off to the lab, are we?" And he said, "No, I'm off to the incinerator." And she said, "Why?" And he said, "Because they're all females. Their estrous cycle messes with the data."
Oh, that's interesting.
So all of these medications that we assume have been tested on men and women, or males and female rat subjects, that may not be so. You may be taking a medication that's never been tested on a female subject before, and assuming that it will work.
And I would go much further than that and say the tests on the men I don't trust for a second, because they're looking at the wrong questions intentionally to sell a product. And it's just like in agriculture, it's just like in medicine. And we're not giving medical advice, obviously, because we're not medical doctors, so we can talk a bit more freely. And the idea is they're missing the whole concept of life and nature. When you change the basic lifestyle of a person, you don't need the drugs. And when you change the soil in agriculture, you don't need to figure out exactly what chemical fertilizer to change or what pesticide you need. The whole issue is just completely transformed. And it's the same for men and baby aspirin, in my opinion. I doubt that it's good for anybody. And it's not, if you take it away and the person gets worse, you say, well, see, that's wrong. But if you change the basic origins of the problem, then the issue is gone. I think that's so hard for people to grasp. Have you noticed?
in my movie Communities Rising, it's free on YouTube. It's just a short documentary. I shot it with my phone. It's raw, but it's authentic. And I think your listeners will appreciate. In there, Howard Vliger, the farmer from Iowa, does talk about how he feels sorry for the farmers, actually, that all they know are which chemical they should use. Like, all they know is to reach for a chemical to solve a problem. Yeah. Because when you have that way of thinking about farming, when you think about, wait a second, I have this type of weed showing up, that means there's too much nitrate in my soil, or too much, not enough whatever magnesium, or these people that the farmers that are aware of the soil, they have an understanding of there's something that needs to be balanced in the soil. So then they certainly plant, something else, like perhaps turnips that help balance the nitrates. Sure. Or I can't even speak to this because I'm not a farmer, but they know what to do about balancing the soil in order to prevent certain weeds, or what perhaps maybe they need to add some minerals, or something. But they balance the soil and they prevent weeds. Maybe they plant a cover crop. They do something else besides using toxic chemicals for the soil, and they have that ability because they have that knowledge base. And, the exciting thing is that these farmer educators like Howard Vliger, like Bob Strite, like Michael McNeil, like Joel Salatin, and Gabe Brown, all amazing farmers, are now teaching other farmers how to do this. Mm-hmm. They have talks, they have conferences, they have YouTube videos. I talked to a young man named Paul that lives out in the Murrieta area and runs Primal Pastures. He raises chickens. He started out with a couple of chickens and now has thousands of chickens. I said, did you go to agriculture school, or was your dad a farmer? He said, no, I went to the school of YouTube. He said, I watched Joe Salatin videos. And so anybody can do this. Anybody can watch these videos and learn how to farm and raise livestock in a way which is not dependent on any toxic chemicals. I mean, think about it. We did it for hundreds of thousands of years before. Yeah. This system of spraying chemicals on our food has only been around for 20 to 40 years, depending on the type of food. If it's GMO, it's only been around for 20 years. If it's a crop where you just sprayed weeds or pests or something like that, they've only been doing this for 40 years. Yeah. That is only basically one generation, folks, a little bit more than one generation. So we just need to remember how ingenious we are and how inventive we are, and get back to trusting ourselves to be able to grow food without toxic chemicals. Right. And I've been putting my money where my mouth is, and just on a very small scale, we now have a backyard garden, and I've been doing that. So
That's great.
Just for people who think, oh, you don't know how hard it is. I don't know how hard it is with, hundreds of acres, but just growing some food, I urge everybody to,
Right.
You will appreciate food so much more if you grow at least some of your own food.
Yeah, I completely agree. And in fact, what I would love to see people become more aware of too is one of the most important fertilizers on the planet, which is ground up rock dust. And it mimics what nature does by ice age, grinding up of the rocks with the weight of the glaciers and then blowing the dust all over the planet to remineralize the soil. That's critical, and it's not that expensive to produce on a large scale. So that could do all kinds of wonderful things for the biosphere. And it was just that we've forgotten most of what we used to know, thanks to modern science, I think.
Yes. Yeah, we have. So we are learning. Yeah.
What about this sale that happened recently of Monsanto to Bayer? What do people need to understand about that? Because the name of Monsanto is going to be disappearing if, it seems to me.
Yeah, well, what we need to understand about that is that the products are not. So, a name, rose by any other name smells just as sweet. Well, a bottle of poison Roundup, does the same thing. It's still poisons.
Yeah.
So whether Bayer owns it or Monsanto owns it, really doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but because it does, but it's still doing the same thing. So if Bayer continues to poison the planet the way they have been and the way Monsanto has been, they can expect billions against Bayer. I mean, that's just what's going to happen. We're not going to just be quiet because Monsanto isn't around anymore, and we're not going to continue to stop speaking up for healthy, safe food. But what I would hope is that Bayer sees this as an opportunity to retire Roundup. Because when there's a transition, when a company absorbs another company, they have an opportunity to choose, which departments or which products they're going to set aside and which ones they're going to focus on and invest in and grow and to make available to the public. And I would assert that it's a great time to retire Roundup because there's plenty of studies out there now showing that it is extremely harmful. There are lawsuits, growing by the day that the lawyers that I've spoken to said they expect by the end of the year to have 10,000 people involved in just that one lawsuit against Monsanto regarding non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And it does not look good for the future of Roundup. Plus, it's not working. There are 37 weeds that are now resistant to Roundup and glyphosate-based herbicides. So they're not working, and the farmers are looking for alternatives. So I would every listener to just envision this future where there's no longer any Roundup on the shelves and there are safe alternatives, natural alternatives, so that the whole concept of spraying a toxic chemical on our food has just simply slipped away. It's no longer, and here's the thing, folks, we don't even really need to have the government ban it. We don't need to wait for our politicians.
Just don't buy it, right?
Yeah. We don't. And what I'm saying is, we don't need to wait for our politicians to see through the piles of money that have been donated to them by these chemical companies to see the light and to change the laws. Right? That could take a very long time. We all know that. Now, it doesn't mean we don't hold them accountable, and we don't ask them to do this, and we don't demand that they protect us. Right? We still do that. We demand that they do their jobs. But we don't have to wait for them. We don't have to sit back and say, the government's just not going to do anything about this, so, I'm just going to try to take care of myself and not do anything about it. No, we need to do something about it. We can speak up when we share on social media, when we do a post on a Facebook page with 100,000 members. You're reaching an awful lot of people, and we can turn the tide, and we can have people no longer buy these products. And just like Jeffrey Smith says when he talks about the tipping point, all we need to do is cause a 15% market share shift away from products like Roundup to products that are like OSM, which is it's a horticulture vinegar, right? It's a 20% acetic acid vinegar. So if we shift the market to a safer, product that's not toxic to human beings, then they get the message. They either stop producing that product or they shift, what their offerings are, and we can affect change in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Just us. Yeah.
I think the fact that you bring up Roundup shows that, again, even if they ended GMOs tonight, they would keep Roundup if they could. And people need to get back to the basic understanding. What are weeds? Weeds are artificially defined as undesirable plants. They're just plants. And the idea of poisoning plants for convenience violates the idea that you don't put poison into the biosphere. And if that's understood, you don't have to wait 10 or 20 years for every new chemical poison to be banned, because I don't think we have time to do that. The basic idea has to be understood. Work is not bad. You're not trying to eliminate all physical activity. Mechanical control of certain plants you don't want is not bad because it takes more time than an instant poison. There's a whole different way to understand life in this particular environment, and poisoning is making a big mistake, no matter what product you use, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The poison is not a good idea, and the problem is that we, for decades now, didn't think of them as poisons. I mean, there's a veggie wash, right? You can buy a product to wash your vegetables with, and it gives people the false concept that you can wash the chemicals off your product. I mean, we've known for a while that they spray pesticides, herbicides, on our food, but we've had this idea we can actually just wash them off, and that's a lie. It's not true. You cannot wash glyphosate off. It goes into every cell of the plant, and we consume it. You cannot wash the pesticide Bt toxin out of the DNA of the corn. Right. You can't wash that off. It's in there.
It's exactly the same as the principle with your body. Once you really understand, you can't put anything on your skin that would not be good to eat, because it goes through all of your cells. It's not just Roundup that does that. You've got to keep things clean.
And you don't know, and no doctor could ever know, what application of that body lotion or that shampoo or that bite of food, you don't know which one was the one that started cancer.
Exactly.
No, it could be that one that you're about to eat.
They're not just a risk; they're a damage. The fact that you don't detect the damage right away doesn't mean that they're not there. It's like Dr. Molden was explaining that really well. Every time, and I'm not going to use too many keywords here, I'd like to keep our YouTube channel, but injecting yourself or your children with poisons, like putting poisons into the agricultural world, is always harmful. It's not a risk of damage. The damage happens as you do it. So with things like Roundup, you never buy it. It doesn't matter if it's Roundup or if it's the next chemical that's advertised like Roundup was, that your kids can play in it safely. You just never buy anything like that. Don't fall for it. And when you're in the gym working out, don't put this stuff on your hands. It's in your blood immediately. And the reason is the path to health is not to sterilize the world or even your body. It's a misunderstanding.
It's very important for people to understand that the bacteria in our world are essential. That bacteria, they are not bad. There are some that are pathogenic, but they also play a role. For instance, there's a certain bacteria, I don't know the name of it now, but Dr. Zach Bush mentioned there's a certain bacteria that actually eats the oil out of, the ocean, that it actually can be helpful in eating the oil. There's a certain bacteria that can help turn around autism, but it's also a pathogen if you just have it by itself, right? So
there's
bacteria is not, there's not really good or bad, but they play different roles, and you just don't want to have an overgrowth of a certain bacteria that then will become pathogenic in the body. Right. We have E. coli, we have salmonella, but when you consume glyphosate, which is a patented antibiotic in your food, because it's sprayed on wheat and peas and beans and legumes and sugar and tea as a drying agent, and oats, by the way, it's sprayed on oats as a drying agent, that when you eat that, the glyphosate destroys the beneficial gut bacteria, so it allows for a proliferation of the pathogenic gut bacteria. And then you've got an overgrowth of salmonella and E. coli, and if you know someone who gets frequent urinary tract infections or candida or yeast or something like that, that's an overgrowth of that bacteria in the gut. And when you kill the bacteria with, antibacterial soaps, when you kill it, in your house, you're actually weakening your immune system rather than strengthening it, because we need a diversity of bacteria in our bodies in order to be able to balance out and to fight, the pathogenic bacteria. So we need to be exposed to dirt. We need to be exposed to the outside. I was just talking to some other doctors, and they're like, stick your head out the window when you're driving in the countryside, when you're going by farms, when you're, take walks in nature, go to the ocean. And if you live by the ocean, go to the mountains for a 2-week vacation. If you live in the mountains, go to the desert for a 2-week vacation. And when you do that, you're going to reset your microbiome. You're going to introduce into your body microbes and bacteria that you normally wouldn't be exposed to, and that strengthens your immune system.
I would just add, when you're going by farms, make sure they're organic farms, because otherwise, do not put your head out the window, roll your windows up, and turn off the ventilation system.
Good point. Yes, I had in my mind the organic farms in Connecticut were nearby where I used to grow up. They have grass-fed cows and goats.
Smells
so
great.
Yeah, that's a good microbiome stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I would like we're on air just for a few minutes right now, and I want these basic understandings to get to the audience and to your listeners too, because if they have those, see, real teachers want to become obsolete and unnecessary. So if you can get these basic understandings to the people, they can figure out, never buy Roundup, never buy any of these chemical pesticides. That's just out of the question, because it clashes with the basic understanding of what you're doing to yourself and the earth, and anything you're doing to anybody else or to any other organism or to the biosphere as a whole, you're doing to yourself instantly. Once you get that, we don't have to tell them 1,000 different details.
And what you're buying and using, people tend to justify in their head, like, well, it's only a little bit, and I'm only one person. And really, if I stop buying it and stop using it, it's not really going to make that much of a difference.
Right.
So people go through a justification process when they buy like a household cleaner that's really toxic, or soap or a detergent, or, well, it's cheap and it's just a little bit and it's not going to make that much of a difference. Well, with hundreds of millions of people choosing to do the same thing, it does make a difference. So, we need to be aware of our personal responsibility in the matter, and remember that there is no away. It washes down the drain. It doesn't go away, like disappear in the universe. There's no away. It goes into our rivers and our oceans. Look what's happening in southwestern Florida right now. There were 300 sea turtles that washed up on shore. There are whales. There are fish and manta ray. And I mean, if you've seen the pictures, it looks like the apocalypse of the ocean in southwestern Florida right now. They have an environmental crisis happening. They have toxic algae, which is killing the marine life. But here's the thing. You can't just say, oh, it's just a natural phenomena of toxic algae because of climate change, right? The temperatures of the waters have gotten warmer before. No, there are toxic chemicals coming from factories and, most importantly, farms, which have been shown to increase the growth of toxic algae, specifically glyphosate, which is what we're talking about today. And that happened in Lake Erie, I believe, about 2 years ago. There was an article on EcoWatch, if your listeners want to look that up. They absolutely linked glyphosate or Roundup to the toxic algae growth in Lake Erie. And what's been done about that? Nothing. That now this runoff from glyphosate and other toxic chemicals from the oceans, from the farms, is going into the rivers. It's going down into the ocean. It creates a growth of toxic algae, which then kills the marine life. So it is so important to raise awareness and to speak up and to be the one to say to your farmer, I don't want you to use Roundup, or your neighbor, please stop using Roundup. And to be the one yourself to not buy it. Just don't buy it. It's very good.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like the point you brought up too about, well, it doesn't matter because everybody else is doing it. Pick something else. Let's say everybody else just decided to be totally dishonest and doing bad things to children or whatever is some bad thing you can imagine, does that mean that you should too because it doesn't matter anymore? And if it does matter,
no.
Why? Why does it matter just to be one person that's trying to live a really good life? Why is it worth it if everybody else is not doing it? And I think there's a reason it's worth it.
Yeah, I would like for people to look to themselves, not to other people. And for instance, in a relationship, when something's gone awry or people, the conversation's not going the way I would like it to, I try to look at what can I do or say to be proud of who I am in the relationship, regardless of whether or not the other person does the thing that I'd like them to, like apologize or, whatever. Who can I be that I'm proud of who I'm being in the relationship? In other words, you clean up your side of the street and then you can sleep at night because you did your part.
Right.
So rather than blaming other people or looking to other people or comparing yourself to other people, really it's a time to look at our personal responsibility in the matter and to take on making choices every day. It's not easy. Sometimes it's more complicated. You have to make more effort. You have to be uncomfortable in order to grow, right? You're always uncomfortable when you're growing. And
even healing a wound is uncomfortable,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's uncomfortable out there, folks. Here's the thing. I think that we have been stricken by sort of a disease of ease, I call it. We want everything comfortable, fast, tasty, easy, cheap, hot, sexy, all of that. We want all of that now. And so we tend to not take on personal responsibility for cooking, for growing, for tending, to crafting, to doing things in a way that take time.
Right.
And we're really, we need to get away from what's comfortable for me, what's convenient, and what's easy,
right.
And what's responsible, what has integrity, and what's going to make a difference in the next 7 generations. That's why I love that company called Seventh Generation, because that's based on the Native American concept of they base their decisions on whether or not that action will impact the next 7 generations.
Right. And you mentioned time too, and the whole time concept is really important because it seems like wherever you are in life, you're just going to be there forever. And that's really not what the truth is. Within what will seem like minutes, you'll be at the end of your life looking back at all of these times in detail and feeling happy about what you did or not. And this is the only time you've got to make that experience better.
Yeah, right now. That's all we have right now. That we can't do anything about the past. We don't know if there's a future. All kinds of, people get hit by a bus, things, asteroids hit planets. I mean, things happen, right? We really can't say just someday that's going to happen. There really is no someday. All there is right now. What are you going to do right now, today, in order to make a difference and to create the world that you want to have? If you're complaining about, the government being a certain way or, a certain regulation or a certain neighbor or something happening in a certain way, all there is to do is to look at what you can do about that, because you can't control other people. It's just absolutely pointless. And worrying about what other people are going to do or not do is totally pointless because, you can't control them. So all there is to do is to ask what you can do today. And so I like to ask our supporters to do one thing a day in order to create that world of health and freedom. For me, it's health and freedom. For other people, it might be love and compassion. It might be, justice and prosperity. I don't know. Whatever that is for you, I invite you to come up with those 2 or 3 words, to write them down somewhere, to have that be your personal mantra. And every day do something to create that future. And for me, it went from doing one thing a day to doing hundreds of things a day. This is now a full-time job for me. I'm very grateful to our supporters to be able to focus on this full-time. We are constantly, taking action when we go on vacation. We drive an RV that says Moms Across America on the side. So wherever we go, people are finding out about it. We pass out flyers. We do talks. And there's really no rest, or there's no... I don't want to say rest. I do rest, but there's no end to raising awareness about going on in the food supply. So for me now, it's hundreds of actions. But I urge people, I know not everybody can be a full-time activist, so you have full-time jobs and all that, but you can do things like bring a stack of our flyers to your work and leave them on the kitchen table, or bring them to the library or a senior center or the grocery store, leave them by the door on the way out. You can incorporate, I call it stealth activism, in your everyday life. You can leave one of our flyers in a doctor's magazine,
right,
at the doctor's office or the dentist's office.
I would also say that on another level, everybody is a full-time activist, and I mean 24 hours a day, because the energy that you're putting into the words in your communication with your relationships and the other people at work and your neighbors and all that, the attitude that you have, that's either causing chaos or it's activism for harmony, which would lead to all these other things. So everybody's working all the time on that stuff. It's just they're not conscious of it.
Oh, you're so brilliant. That is so true. We are taking actions every day. We're living our life. We are impacting the environment and our society and our relationships and our government with our actions every day. You're absolutely right. And some people are aware of it, and that's why there's this, what they call a conscious movement. Some people are aware of it, and some are not. I'm not a big fan, I have to insert in here, of the phrase "wake up." Of telling people to wake up, because it's condescending, right? And it's me. I did not know about GMOs for 9 years. When I fed my child GMOs for 9 years, it was actually 17 years that I didn't know that they were in our food supply to the extent that they were. That didn't make me, stupid or dumb or asleep or with my head in the sand. I had no way of knowing until my son.
We're not supposed to realize that there's beauty in everybody. We're supposed to fight. All the archetypical heroes of Hollywood, including women now, are the ones that can kill the fastest. And there is really another archetype to aspire to, I think, that's a lot more powerful.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it does not sit well with me. You're right. When they say, "Oh, we've got, powerful women roles now." Well, they're fighting. They're killing people.
Right. They've got at least two machine guns with them at all times.
Yeah. So let's be aware of what we're doing, and let's create, love and compassion and health and safety in the world. And every day we're making the choice to do that through our actions. You can buy organic. You can send an email, forward an email through Moms Across America and many other great organizations like Organic Consumers Association and Beyond Pesticides and Center for Food Safety. And there's many great organizations, Friends of the Earth and Sierra Club, that are putting information out there that is so much more important than the mainstream media blather about. I'm sorry, what the president is doing, and who's having an affair, and what fire. But maybe this is This is intentionally to keep you away from your power. It's not that they're dumb, but the other thing that I'm talking about, mainstream media, and they're a weapon against society right now. But one of the positive things that people could do, I think, if they want to learn more about their own potential, is buy your book. And it would be neat if you could explain what your book's about. Thank you so much. So my book, Unstoppable, I'm getting a little bit of an echo. My book, Unstoppable, Transforming Sickness and Struggle into Triumph, Empowerment, and a Celebration of Community, is really, it feels like my baby. I was working on it for the past 3 years. And it is the story of my journey, not just in recovering my children and being an activist, but in creating Moms Across America and realizing that we, as consumers, not just moms, but all of us, can transform the food supply and the health of America and beyond. We have this power. And in my book, I cover the science behind everything that I'm asserting, and I have lots of different references in there and scientific studies. And I also bring in community. I bring in farmers and doctors and scientists and lawyers and the research from many scientists. So I bring in community. Oh, and lots of moms, of course, with testimonials that their children got better, or themselves or their husbands, their families. And even cover pets as well, pet food and many different things. So we have a guide for how to take action. We have the science. We have my personal stories, some of them which are quite harrowing, and others which I think are very, exciting and great. So because of the people that I came in contact with, that's the thing. This food movement and the mess that our food supply and our government is in right now has a benefit to it. The other side is that there are beautiful, generous, compassionate people that are rising up and speaking up, and they're taking action. So we have a resurgence of activism and action, or advocacy, if you want to call it, in a way that we haven't seen in many, many decades. And so it's very exciting. So my book covers really important issues crucial issues, frankly, if you want to have a healthy family. And so it's a great book to get for a couple that wants to have babies someday, for anybody that cares about their health, and to leave in your library. We had one mom who donated enough money to have 20 books sent out to the libraries in her state. And I'm really excited about that, because who knows how many thousands of people are going to be able to have access to this information, which is not in the mainstream media for the most part.
Right.
Only in, grassroots types media and radio shows like yours and YouTube shows. It's not information that you are likely to see on NBC or CBS or sometimes ABC. We've had some, but it's challenging information, and you do need to want to seek it out. Yeah. So I'm very proud of the book.
I thought it was fantastic book, not just because of the information. That, to me, what gives this book additional value, over and above all the great information that's practical in it, is that it's got an emotional component that's real. It's like going into an adventure that you kind of live with you as you tell it. And to me, that the emotion is where the power is. Otherwise, you've got a list of information, and you say, "Oh, that's important and interesting," and it doesn't affect you as much. The fact that you put yourself into this book makes it a lot more real. It's like people go through it with you as you learn the stuff and meet all these people that are damaged by these poisons in the environment, and the ones that are helping to heal everybody from that. And it's an incredible adventure. It's like people that want to go to a great movie or play or something like that would find that experience in the book, for many hours of reading it. And I think it was great. So
thank you, Richard. I really appreciate you taking the time to read it. I know that that's a commitment. We have many other things that we could be doing, and videos that we could be watching and all that, and reading a book does take some time and commitment, but I did try to make it also, interesting and engaging by sharing my emotions and my feelings towards things, and my disappointments and breakdowns and all of that. So
it's incredible.
It's very personal.
We're taught by the system that emotion is really stupid, and it's inferior, and it's unscientific, and it's subjective. And there's a reason they're putting so much emphasis that it is worthless. And I trust the government and the global corporations completely. If they tell you something is really terrible, it's probably vital. And if they tell you something is really important, it may kill you. I mean, you have to be careful, because they do tell the truth by mistake sometimes. But in this case, like in higher education, I was taught in a PhD health sciences course that to be a real scientist, which obviously you must want to be, which I do actually agree with, you have to have no opinion and no emotion. And they're training people by the millions with that in mind, so that they're perfectly set up as somebody whose mind is full of certain so-called facts and no opinion and no emotion to recognize they're all nonsense. You can walk right into a position of being a tool of the system, and most of the jobs now that pay a lot of money are some aspect of destroying the biosphere, and it seems to me. So if you say, well, thank you for that guidance, now I know that developing that subtle feeling ability is going to see right through things that would take me years to understand with intellect alone. And I think that that's part of what the moms are giving to the world. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I would speak at let's say a board meeting. One that comes to mind was the California Horse Track Racing Board, because one of the horse racers, trainers, was concerned about the horses dropping dead. There's like 12 a month that are dropping dead in the Del Mar racetrack historically, and they're having heart attacks. And she said, I think it's linked to this increase of glyphosate on the grains because they're allowed to spray it as a drying agent. Glyphosate's been linked to heart conditions. So they have this weakened heart or valves, and they run, and then they have these heart attacks. And so she had me go down there to speak. And the veterinarian that is on the board is hired by UC Davis. Now, UC Davis happens to have a program called a weed-free straw program where they encourage farmers to sell weed-free straw. And guess what they use to make it weed-free? They use Roundup and glyphosate, right? And guess who funds UC Davis? Monsanto. Right. So this veterinarian gets up and after I speak about the concerns of glyphosate being on their straw and in their horse feed, which, by the way, it's been found in horse feed, he says, well, this has been a long, contested, drawn-out, emotional argument, by Miss Honeycutt and the moms on her whatever. So he immediately went to the emotional aspect of it. Right. And my response to him and to the moms who say to me, when I've trained at least 85 moms to be speakers, they say, well, what if I get emotional when I'm up in front of people? Like, what if I start to tear up? And I say, that's a good thing. You acknowledge that. You know why you're emotional? You're emotional because you love your kids. Right. You love your family. You will do anything for them. And that is exactly what Monsanto and these chemical companies are most afraid of. Yeah, that they can't stop you. And that your emotion.
What would happen if men became aware of emotion? That would be the end of the world, right?
Well, this would stop when men get in touch with the men on the other side, when they get in touch with the fact that, wait a second, their child has autism, or their daughter, or got hurt by a vaccine or something like that, vaccine damage. When the men like Robert De Niro speak up. Yeah. And Aidan Quinn, and there's so many men, Del Bigtree, and Andy Wakefield, and when these men speak up, then other people listen more, right? That's just the way our system is built. But then things can shift in another way. I don't want to say it's greater, but it adds on to our power. So we need the men to touch with their emotions as well, and to say, you know what, I am emotional about this. And when I train the women, I say, you stop. If you get emotional, you say, excuse me, I'm getting emotional right now. I'm tearing up a little bit because I'm just so present to how much I love my kid and how impacted his future would be by GMOs and glyphosate and toxic chemicals if I hadn't found out about them. Because now I know his health is improving and he's getting better. And you know what? He has a new future because I found out about GMOs and chemicals. And I'm asking you to give other people a new future, to give those kids a new future, because guess what? When they have a new future, when their future is not compromised and they're not able to speak, they're not able to relate to other people, they're not able to have healthy social interactions, they're not able to learn. When they have a new future instead, where all those things become possible, our country then has a new future. And so what we're doing when we're sharing this information, you and me right now, when your listeners are going to share this information, you are creating a new future for our country and for the world. Make no mistake about it. This is essential, important, and it matters. And what you're doing matters. Every child that improves, that their health improves, is a child that can impact the future in a positive way. Think about the 2 or 3 boys that invented Google and Facebook, right? If those boys had been impacted and been incapacitated and had autism and, were not able to function in the way that they did, the world would be completely different. They themselves invented, those 3 guys invented something which has altered the future of the world. So just think about what the potential is for that one child and that's in your life, or many children, and be the one to create that future together with them, by making choices which are healthy for them.
And that's actually planting seeds. And which fortunately are totally immune to anybody trying to make them into GMO. Those are seeds of inspiration. And I would just suggest that none of those ever are wasted. Every single seed sprouts. It's just a question of when. But they may lie dormant while the person learns some lessons that they haven't really dealt with yet in their life. And then later, that what you said sometime with the right energy comes back to mind and it changes their life. So I would never assume anything is wasted like that if it comes out of a good intention.
Yes, I don't want anybody to be saying, oh, it doesn't matter, or we'll see, or, oh, that's just the way he is. No. You stop that right now. If your sister-in-law, your brother-in-law, your neighbor or whatever, if you have it, oh, that just is the way they are, they're never going to change, or they're never going to listen to me, or my city council will never listen to me, or my Senate representative, or all that, give that up. Consider that it is possible. The change is possible. It may not happen right now, but be the one to stand for them, to have that shift. Be generous, be patient, be kind, but continue to give them the information that could shift things for them. Send them a movie, send them a link to an article, or invite them to a movie night at your house. We have organic potlucks, and we have a movie night, and we invite people over, and they invite friends that may not know about this information. And so you just keep standing for them and taking action, coming from love, not from you're wrong, and don't you know that you're poisoning us? If you get angry at your neighbor for spraying Roundup, guess what they're going to do? They're going to spray more Roundup.
Right.
They are. They spite you. I've known people whose neighbors have purposely directed, the chemicals in their direction in their yard and purposely sprayed them. Right. So do not get angry with them about it. Come from a loving place, bring them some cookies, bring them a flyer, and be very humble. Be like, you know what, I didn't know about this. I used to use Roundup all day long. Or me personally, in my book, I share that when my dad wanted me to pull weeds out of a pond, I grew up in Connecticut, we had a small pond, and he wanted me to go in there and pull weeds up, and it's very mucky. It's not a fun job. And I said, Dad, just throw Roundup in there, because I had seen on TV that Roundup was safe. I was like 12 years old, right? And I didn't want to do the work. And He's like, no, it'll kill frogs. And I was like, I just thought he was being a stubborn old goat,
Yeah, there's plenty of frogs. What's your problem?
Yeah, or that's not true. You're just making that up because you want me to do the work. You don't want to do something different. You don't want to listen to me. I know better, and you don't. So, but getting angry at people about it never works. It does not help. They will not listen to you, and it takes a lot of self-control. But simply standing for them, being patient, being kind, bringing them some cookies, bringing them a flyer, whatever you can do to continue to invite them. And maybe you also, in the meantime, shift your attention to the city, to ask the city to stop spraying. We just had we have a Monday night Moms Connect call. So if you sign up for our newsletter, our action alerts, you get an invitation every Monday night, except for holidays and vacation. But every Monday night at 5 p.m., Pacific time, we have a Moms Connect call where moms from all across the country come on a Zoom video so we can see each other and connect and talk. And we had a mom on just this Monday, Jennifer from Oxford, Connecticut, who went to her city manager with an organic landscaping company. And they said, listen, we know that you guys have been spraying Roundup and glyphosate-based herbicides all over the town. They've had all kinds of complaints about it, that, people don't want it. And so in one meeting, that city manager fired True Green. That's a very well-known landscaping company. They fired them, and then they hired the organic landscaping company, and they stopped using glyphosate-based herbicides in the whole town.
Wow!
In one meeting. So you can do this. You just, so maybe Jennifer may not have gotten her neighbor to stop spraying Roundup. I don't know. Maybe she did. But do you know what I mean? In the meantime, she directed her attention to the city, and the city then stopped spraying Roundup. And other people across the country have done this with just their school board, right? Because the school board is a different jurisdiction, or just their parks and rec, right? Or just their state parks. So focus on whatever it is that you feel connected to. If you're part of the PTA, get your school to stop spraying, right? Or your church, If you're really connected in your church, get your church to stop spraying. Connect to the people that you are already connected with. Focus on one thing at a time. Go to momsacrossamerica.org, click on action, and under action, there's a page called Toxin Free Town Campaign. And we have all the materials that you need there, talking points, flyers, links to scientific studies, everything that you need there in order to have your town or your homeowners association or your school board or your city, switch to organic practices. And
this is momsacrossamerica.com. Is that the website?
Yeah, or .com, either one. Yeah, we have both URLs. And you could click on action and then Toxin Free Town Campaign. Okay. And we urge people to not go to your city council and say, we want you to ban Roundup. Because ban automatically insinuates a restriction of choice, of rights, to be able to choose to use a product or not. Yeah. And in many counties, in fact, Monsanto and the chemical companies have preempted our communities and have put laws into place that do not allow counties to ban a chemical, because for that very reason, they say it then restricts the farmers and they have less tools in their toolbox. So in many counties, you can ban anyway. So you end up looking uninformed about your state laws. If you go and ask for a ban, they'll immediately scoff you off and say, well, we can't ban. We don't, it's not possible. Yeah. So instead go and say, we would like you to discontinue the use of glyphosate-based herbicides and other toxic chemicals, because there's other ones, dicamba and 2,4-D, right? And we would like you to focus on an organic priority, using organic methods instead.
So you have to understand how to use words.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's very important, the words that you choose to use when you go to present to people. And it makes it so much easier if you use words that are not like fighter words.
You know also that the manufacturer of Roundup has foreseen these movements against Roundup, and so they have Roundup available under other names. And sometimes cities will be buying them as something pro or, something like that. And the salesman says, oh, this is for people that don't want to use Roundup, and it's Roundup. Have you seen that?
Yes, that's a very good point. There are 750 different brands of glyphosate-based herbicides. It is the most widely used herbicide in the world. The common one is rodeo. And there's many different brands that use glyphosate as one of the declared active chemical ingredients, or of two, like they're combining glyphosate with 2,4-D, and some products are glyphosate with dicamba. So you have to say glyphosate-based herbicides and toxic chemicals. There are many other.
Yeah, I would say any synthetic chemical herbicide. And the other thing that towns will say often is that they don't have enough money to do mechanical weed control, but that's not true. And almost every city, county, and other municipal corporate entity has massive amounts of money off budget, and they never want you to find that out. Look into CAFR accounts. I found we're in a little town of like 10,000 people. They have $200 million that they forgot to mention on the budget, and it's not always exactly like it seems. Oh my goodness, that's a great point. I've never heard that before. They can afford to pull the weeds out. They can afford people with hose, and that's good jobs that'll make them healthy. And weed whacking doesn't take any longer than spraying. No, and it's actually it's a healthy job instead of poisoning all these people unknowingly spraying the weeds, and setting up cancer for their families from their clothes and everything. I want you to just leave people with something, because we have a couple minutes, since I'm going to bother you with something else in 10 minutes from now. Mm-hmm. So why don't you tell people what you want them to remember from this whole thing? I want you to remember that you make a difference, that if you take one action every day, buying organic or speaking to somebody about discontinuing the use of Roundup in your town, you're making you're making a choice and taking an action that will impact generations to come. New studies have shown that the glyphosate herbicides and GMOs, but particularly right now, glyphosate herbicides impact the second generation
of female rats that were, ate glyphosate while they were pregnant. So when they had a female that they were carrying, that female, when that female rat had babies, those babies were impacted. The reproductive ability, the size of the litter, the birth defects, the ability to conceive, all of that was impacted. So you taking an action every day impacts future generations. You're going to leave a legacy of safety and health and prosperity for many generations to come. So I just urge you to take that action, go to Moms Across America, sign up for our newsletter, buy my book, donate it to the library, do an action every day that will create health and freedom in America. And I want to thank you so much for your partnership. And you can count on Moms Across America to be your partner as well. We have lots of information to give out to you. And if you want to join into an event, if you want to create or join into an event like a street fair or a parade, we will give you a free box of materials. All you have to do is post the event on our website so that we know you're serious. And then you pay just $20 for shipping, and we send you a code that you can put in, and you get that box of materials worth almost $200 for free. All you have to do is pay for shipping. So we want to support you in your local towns. You can get our materials and pass them out. We've got them on eating organic food and toxins and everything that you can imagine for having a healthy environment. We've got family-friendly, nice, non-scary, non-threatening flyers to give to city officials and your neighbors. So we hope you do that.
Beautiful. Thank you. And one real quick thing, we got like 15 seconds, but what if I'm just a regular old person and I'm not a mother? Like I might even be a man or a child or a single person of some kind. Can I don't feel like my help should not be used. So what can I do?
Please do the same thing. Join us anyway. You can start events. You can pass out flyers. You can get our newsletter. You can share our newsletter with everybody that you know. We have our biggest supporters are men, and we can't do without them. We focus on moms because we're moms, and we want to amplify the voice of moms, and people trust moms, and we're the ones running this organization. So, but we can't do it without the dads and the uncles and aunties and teachers and firemen and everybody else. So please do join us and be a part of it.
All right. Sounds great. Hold on, and we'll say goodbye in the break here. Okay, everybody, there goes Zen Honeycutt, the founding executive director of Moms Across America. And also, I don't think we mentioned, she is the co-creator with another inspiring person named Dr. Vandana Shiva of Mothers Across the World. And so she's got this, because this shouldn't only be going on in America. Every country independently should be doing its own thing to make sure that they get away from chemical agriculture in general. And I know I'm talking pretty far outside the box there. For most people, they understand GMOs maybe, or hopefully more people are understanding GMOs are deadly to the whole biosphere. But my point early in our conversation, of course, was so is chemical agriculture, and I am a supporter of farmers, no matter what they're using, but I just want them to get back to making their maximum contribution to high-quality food and their impact on the biosphere. And you do that by learning enough, becoming wise enough to ditch chemical agriculture and still make as much or more money than you made before. I am not in favor of anybody going broke. Even Bayer, I don't want them to go broke. I just want them to just take care of this little detail of making sure they're not making money by selling anything harmful. And then I support them. And everybody can do that. I thought it was great how Zen talked about the fact that everybody, in relating to anybody else, including their kids, their spouse, their relatives, their people at work, or somebody they meet in the grocery store or whatever who wants to talk to them, you're an activist all the time. I mean, I'd say, I take it further, you're an activist even when you're not talking to anybody, because what are you thinking and what are you feeling? And how can you tune into the thought and emotional patterns that are stronger and more inspiring and uplifting and tell you answers to things you could do? That's activism, and we're not supposed to understand that. It's not only going out in the street, where lately all the crazy people want to beat you up and stuff like that. It's all the time, because your thoughts and your emotional patterns that you carry inside you have huge power. And it's not a belief or a philosophy. You get to a certain point where you can start experiencing that. And the only way you can is to start cultivating it now, even if you're cleaning a bathroom or digging a ditch or working in a science lab or in a company meeting or watching a TV program or whatever, which I don't really encourage very much at all because they're so polluted now with garbage. But watching a good old movie or something, in the back of your mind, there's a track running all the time that is thoughts and emotions, and most people aren't even conscious of it, but they're controlled by it, and they don't even know that. So I'm urging everybody to become conscious of that. This is where activism starts. Change the thought and emotional pattern once you become aware of it even, and turn it into something that if it were broadcast all over the sky in big letters, it would help inspire the world. Because the truth is, it is. And that won't make any sense until you start getting in touch with it, but you'll be amazed that we're never silent. We're broadcasting what we're thinking and feeling. So use it. You're an activist right now. Just decide what kind you want to be. Let's see, what else? We talked a lot about Roundup, and I would say it's not just Roundup, it's any kind of pesticide at all. Rachel Carson was 100% right. A lot of the people who think of themselves as conservatives, and this is why I don't have any label at all, think that these concerns that Rachel Carson wrote in her book, Silent Spring in the 60s, were all crazy. And I don't think our current president understands this yet either. This information needs to get to him, that the poisons are not necessary. They never were. They were always a hoax. There are wiser ways to accomplish more than what they claim to be accomplishing in a good way that's going to do nothing but help people. And we need to bring those back. And the only way we can do that is not just by memorizing what's going on in the world, but by changing your inner awareness of yourself. That always comes back to the same message. So thanks for caring about that stuff. We really appreciate you very much. Thanks for letting us spend a little time with you. Support Zen's incredible activity at acrossamerica.com, momsacrossamerica.com. Buy her book. I'm not saying that because we're getting any money from it. It would be just as valid if I was getting money from it, but I'm not. The book is called Unstoppable. Yeah, that's the thing. It's not evil to get money and then use it for good things, okay? Money is not evil. All these things are tools. It depends what you use them for. Zen needs money into her organization. Donate if you can. Read Unstoppable. It's a very inspiring, worthwhile adventure story about what she's been doing and what she's doing now. Thanks for staying up with us. We'll have lots more interesting videos on our YouTube channel and Facebook and Twitch. We're getting on new platforms. Look at us on Real Video. That needs a lot of support, real.video. And we'll have a lot more that we can share with you in the future. Anybody that is interested in going into it further in detail on themselves, there's a group that we've started called Planetary Healing Club. You can find out about it at lostartsradio.com/club. It's not just handing out information, which, as somebody pointed out, you can get for free, and you should get for free on your own internet research all the time. But this is different. This is taking it to the next step of interaction and support group for using it in your own life. And I'm going to be openly sharing my ongoing research in health and consciousness. So if you're interested in that, I'll meet you there. lostartsradio.com/club. If not, that's fine. Follow us on our free video channels and our Sunday educational shows, lostartsradio.com. And I'll see you there next time. Have a good week in between.
Introducing Lost Arts Radio Live, our new Saturday late afternoon, early evening 1-hour live stream show. This new show precedes our Planetary Healing Club, which starts at 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Pacific. The Planetary Healing Club, which is not free and open to the public, but you can join for a minimum donation of just $10 a month. Our new live stream show, which is free, starts Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern and 4:30 Pacific. It can be accessed by going to lostartsradio.com/live. You can tune into our live stream from our Facebook page at facebook.com/LostArtsRadio, from our YouTube channel at youtube.com/LostArtsRadio, as well as both Periscope and Twitter at Lost Arts Radio. You can ask questions during the show by using the chat function on YouTube or make a comment on Facebook during the live stream. Once again, that's Lost Arts Radio Live, Saturdays at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. As of January 2018, the Saturday live call-in show is now an interactive video platform called the Planetary Healing Club. The cost is just a $10 minimum monthly donation, automatically billed through your PayPal account. Sign up at lostartsradio.com/club. The Planetary Healing Club is every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. You get your link to participate in the show upon signing up as a member. Those shows are also archived as well for club members. Listen to our new shows with guests every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. All Sunday shows with guests have archives freely available on our website at lostartsradio.com. You can also find them at blogtalkradio.com/lostartsradio, as well as our YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/LostArtsRadio. Mixcloud at mixcloud.com/LostArtsRadio. And finally, look us up under the podcast directory on iTunes. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/LostArtsRadio or on Twitter at Lost Arts Radio. Be sure to join the free Lost Arts Radio Facebook group as well. Just search for Lost Arts Radio Group within Facebook. You can also join our forum on our website if you want to interact with other listeners. We also have links to all of the great independent musicians whose music we feature each week on Lost Arts Radio. When you do your Amazon shopping, please use Amazon's Smile program at smile.amazon.com. And when you choose Lost Arts Research Institute in Sedona, Arizona as your charity, Amazon will donate 0.5% of whatever your order total is to Lost Arts Research Institute to help fund the building of the school and keep our radio show on the air. Please visit lostartsresearchinstitute.org for more information on the school we want to build. Be sure to sign up for our free weekly newsletter on our site under the Radio Show tab or right from the button on our Facebook page. Contact Richard at richard@lostartsradio.com or myself, Doug Diamond, at doug@lostartsradio.com. Thanks again for listening to Lost Arts Radio, and we'll see you again next week.
Did not want my sadness to ever show.